So, good morning everyone, and welcome to this session. We will be talking about cloud financial management and KPIs in specifically. Today I'm joined by Michel Sitman, and our FinOps practice lead from Oblivion, and we have Sydney Ebner remotely from Washington. He's from Cloud Health by VMware. Welcome, both of you. We will be talking about CFM and FinOps. Michel, can you explain a little bit more about the topic itself?
So, first of all, good morning again to the audience. Really happy to be here. It's a pleasure. And also a pleasure to be sharing a little bit more about this interesting topic about cloud financial management. So, what is that, right? Cloud financial management, as we like to put it at Oblivion, is a new knowledge domain that has raised from this really disruptive economic model that cloud computing brings, right? Everything is really different from regular and traditional IT. And that because of the immense amount of new services that are there and how they are priced and how you need to pay for these. It's on demand and pay as you go. So if you use something for a second, you only pay for a second. And this is really different than just old days buying machines or buying assets. And we need to cope with that. And one of the ways to cope with this on the financial side is this new knowledge domain. Although it's a financial thing, it's also somewhat technical. This is what's cloud financial management, FinOps. And it depends who says that, right? So it can be called cloud financial management. Some people call FinOps. And there's the FinOps Foundation that, but on their take, this also involves all the aspects that we consider within cloud financial management. So bottom line, it serves the same purpose, and it's to govern and control and to be able to optimize efficiency in relation to cloud value, right? So how can we see that and how can we make it better? Trying to boil it down, I would define it like this.
And it's becoming more and more an important topic, right? Can you explain a little bit why it's growing that quickly? Yeah,
well, naturally, as cloud is adopted by more and more organizations, this reflects economically, right? And as it takes a bigger piece of the IT overall spend, it becomes more important to focus there. And people quickly start to realize that there is no one-to-one. We cannot do anything that we used to do in terms of IT financials from the traditional way and just try to apply it one-to-one on the cloud. So it's becoming more and more because organically cloud is being more adopted overall. So this bottom line, that's the reason this is gaining more and more attention.
Yeah, and what are the latest developments in the market? Because it's growing quickly, not only I think from the consumer side, but also from the producer side. But I lost, if you look at the FinOps Foundation, they have a nice overview of all the tools, but what is really happening over there?
Yeah, so if we look into what's happening, it's gaining a lot of attention from both sides, right? So the consumers are more interested about that because they want to have a better way to view, and to control it. And in the other hand, there is a demand for that. And so hyperscalers, so cloud providers, AWS, for instance, they are building more and better tools to supply that demand. Also third-party tools such as Cloud Health by VMware have been there for a long time, but now the market is growing and this is really picking up. And also as proof of that, there is the FinOps Foundation that I mentioned before. So it's a foundation that comes associated with the Linux Foundation, but the point here is that they just started about a year ago, and they already have over 5,000 members, and if I'm not mistaken, about 1,000 certified practitioners. So you have this growing and growing, and it's becoming its own knowledge domain, just as not comparing, but just as security is a knowledge domain within IT, and specifically security in cloud is really different. You would say you have a lot of experience on that, but the same thing is happening with FinOps. And as I said, is evolving, and it's not never going to be finished, but definitely something that's mature enough to have its own good practices that can be broadly accepted. Yeah.
Yeah. So Sydney, you are working for Cloud Health by VMware, one of our partners and a vendor in the CFM world. Can you explain a little bit more about the developments you see from the FinOps side?
Yeah. So thank you for having me. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, we're absolutely seeing just a tremendous growth on our side as well. Just an uptick in customer base. We're seeing more individuals within customers starting to use the platform more and more. I think exactly like Michel was saying, it goes hand in hand with companies starting to spend more on the cloud. They want to know what's happening. They want a tool which will help them understand and see what's happening, and so that's been great for us.
Yeah, and what's your coolest feature, a new feature in Cloud Health? Do you have a favorite one?
I do, but I like to get into the weeds a little bit. So I'm sure we'll touch on it more when we talk KPIs. But one of the newer features that we have is called Flex Reports. It's a new way of thinking about reporting within Cloud Health anyway, which allows organizations to just really build whatever type of report that they're looking for. And it'll be great for, we can talk about it more in just a bit when we start talking about KPIs.
Yeah, thank you. Michel, do you have some examples of the evolving market?
Yeah, well, if we look how this is developing, also in the sense of governance, right? From cloud financial management is composed of a few things. One of them, as we like to say, is the operational side, the optimization side, but there is the governance side as well. And when we talk about governance, it's important that we try to highlight how this goes, right? And in our view, again, at Oblivion, we believe that it all starts with awareness. So you create awareness, so you bring visibility, and that drives accountability, and that accountability will end up demanding awareness. So if you frame this correctly within your organization, and you put this behind that you're not looking necessarily for a reduction, but you're looking for efficiency, then you're going to be all right. And to your question, that how this is evolving and what are the new things around this, is that a lot of companies and organizations have reached this stage where they have the visibility, right? They gain this awareness. But now they need to try to build this governance around it and try to, okay, how do I implement this? What do I do with that? And then you see things like not being passive anymore. So you have cost anomaly detections and cost monitoring and things like popping up, like something is going on here, and your cost spiked really high within 1 day difference, and by machine learning algorithms behind that, saying that, okay, based on your historical patterns, this is not okay. So, and then you get a notification. Or if you have a slightly more mature model where you, aside of just visibility, you also have budgets, and then you can compare, okay, how am I doing in relation to my budgets or to my limits? This can be, you have a new feature, for instance, on AWS, budget actions, that allows you to take actions about something that when your budget exceeds or it's forecasted to exceed. And this is really cool. You see that it's not only the consumer side, the consumers of cloud needing something. You see a response directly from the other side, from the vendors, from the hyperscalers, developing new features and bringing that to help customers achieve this higher maturity in terms of cloud financial management.
Yeah, because there are some big differences with cloud and the on-premises world, we all know. Previously, we were used to report, let's say, every quarter to our management, but with FinOps, it's different, right, Sydney? So we have way shorter feedback loops. Can you explain a little bit more how those things work?
Yeah, and that's really where we start to see the value of Cloud Health, or at least a lot of our customers start to see that initial value of Cloud Health. it takes, you know, it can take a ton of time because to build some of these reports, because the environments aren't static the way they were perhaps in data centers of old. When you're billed per the second, or, you know, sometimes, you know, on for some resources, or you pay for what you use, the environment is constantly changing, and it's enabled to constantly change by new ideas of not so new, but newer ideas of elasticity and availability, high availability, things like that. It enables new architectures specifically for public cloud. And so we see that customers have a need to report very, very quickly. They're constantly pushing us to report faster and faster and faster. Business stakeholders want more and more information. They want to know as things are changing, exactly like you said. They're, you know, and so cloud providers are starting to build more of that functionality. Cloud Health has had a lot of that functionality for years now. We absolutely see that. That's absolutely a trend that we see.
Yeah, and apart from reporting, because the measuring is, I would say, the easy part, but predicting costs is maybe a little bit more difficult. What kind of developments do you see in that area?
Yeah, so you know, of course, everyone loves machine learning, right? So we're starting to see more and more organizations leveraging machine learning for trying to predict based off of what's happened. We're seeing more features come out around, like Michel said, anomaly detection. AWS is something like that, which is allowing you to see very, very quickly, or to predict if something is different from the norm, right? So if someone spins up a new service in a new region or a new instance type, we can help them identify that or potentially flag that as something that is unexpected or unintended when we just start to see these deviations from what is normal.
Yeah, and so these are all the measurements still. What makes it? What's the most important thing when it comes to governance? How do you get the best out of this, Michel?
Yeah, so when you establish a governance, then we start talking about processes, right? And ways of controlling things. So bringing this from this generalistic overview of governance and putting this onto cloud financial management, it's really important to put the context of cloud here, because the cloud, circling back to your previous statement of yours, how this differ in the cloud, is that in the cloud, in the past, we used to track assets, right? So a traditional IT. So you had a computer, or you had a piece of hardware, and you could put a little tag in that and put a number in it, and now or a software license. And with cloud, you basically have that, but you have this for 10 minutes, and it is no longer yours. So you're not going to put a metallic tag on something that you don't even have access to. And the bottom line to this is you change who is consuming IT, right? So procurement used to consume IT, buy IT. And nowadays you have that power of buying and consuming directly on the hands of the users, so developers, engineers, architects. And imagine that if you remove that ability from them to create hard processes that can really make sure you are within control, within the boundaries you have set, you at the same time are taking one of the most important benefits of cloud, which is agility, right? If you remove that and you make them go through layers and layers of bureaucratic processes, this is pointless. So when you apply then in this context FinOps, is that you need to start thinking about, I'm not tracking assets anymore, I'm tracking consumption, right? And then there's anomaly detection features, and then having some sort of budget or limit and a threshold to be alerted if you reach that, or if you are forecasted to reach that, becomes really important, because we are talking about consumption. It doesn't matter if you have 10,000 people in your team, or if you have 3 developers there. You want to know what is being consumed, not how much necessarily in terms of numbers. Right? 10 computers. If it's 10 computers, really cheap ones, then it's the same if you have one really, really expensive one. So it doesn't matter. Track consumption. So with that in mind, we need to keep to make sure that whatever you start controlling and you start enforcing, so the accountability that you bring there to your teams, to your organization as a whole, in this cloud financial management context, can be matched by the autonomy they have. So if you say, look, you are spending too much in cloud, or we are consuming too much in cloud, and you can say, okay, but this is something that can be controlled by them or not. Is this something that, okay, yes, we are, the cloud bill is really big because we have an e-commerce and it's Black Friday. So yes, there is a lot of people joining our website, so our infrastructure will scale accordingly, which is a good sign because we have made a good architecture then, but that brings more cost. But what about the revenues coming? And this basically brings us to this talk of today, right? So how do we pass on to this bridge of having visibility and having somewhat a control and start creating some KPIs that can really bring some business integration and demonstrate the cloud value of things, not the cloud cost of things, but the value that it brings, right? So if you have something important as an e-commerce based on your cloud infrastructure, then you want to know, okay, this is bringing me value. It's not a cost. It's bringing me value. So how can you uncover that value, right? And bring this on with FinOps KPIs. So this is how I see this. And of course, we have examples of what you should at least try to do, because each organization would have their own set of specific needs and their own way of relating the cloud bill, I don't want to say cost, so the cloud bill towards the business value that it brings. So really depends on what they do, but we have general best practices that can potentially be applied in a myriad of ways. So I can share mine, and maybe Sidney has also things to add on that. So I'm bringing here one example of a feature that is widely spread across many providers in the logistics sector, which is a track and trace application, imagine. So what I'm trying to demonstrate here, aside of the example, which is of course hypothetical, the amounts, but the practices are correct, and the components of this, what I am trying to use here to build this KPI is also correct. So first of all, if we're going to impose this accountability again, remember we need to make sure that the people are autonomous to do something, and you need to have a goal for that, right? You don't want to measure something and build a beautiful dashboard full of KPIs just for the sake of the KPIs, right? It needs to mean something. What is your goal? What do you want to measure? So in this case, we want to measure workload efficiency, right? So we want to make sure that this workload is being efficient in the use. In this part, we want to make sure that a team brings their own metrics, right? Because the team developing it can bring the metrics to a Cloud Center of Excellence or Cloud Center of Expertise, depends on how it's called in many organizations, and just say, look, this is what I'm going to be measuring about my application to make sure that it's running efficiently. And that then can be an approval stamp from the CCOE, or the COE can disagree or look at the architecture, say, no, why don't you do that? But in general guidelines, it should come from the team because they know what they have autonomy to change within their architecture. So then once they know what they're going to track, they need to set a target. Okay, is it good for me, right? So when is my KPI going to be green and when is going to be red, or whatever colors they decide to use for good, positive or negative. And once they do that, in this example, I'm saying that the target they will have is for 1,000 track and trace searches that the customers do, whatever logistic provider they use. When they're receiving a package, they want to know, where is my package? And they go and they put the code and they press search. And then they get a reply. Your package is in this distribution center, is on the way to your home, is I don't know where, crossing the Atlantic. But you get a reply. This little piece of information that you send a code to somewhere in the cloud that is processed, and then you get a reply. All this has a cost, right? So when we have this cost, you can say, okay, every response, every search, right, generates a response. The response to the customer is what's bringing value to the customer, right? So you want to check how much every response is costing you in my hypothetical example. So what you're going to be tracking here, how many track and traces response have you provided within a certain period of time, and how much that costed you, right? The track and trace application is costing you with all its components. And then you can, from that, extract the cost per response. So once you have that, multiply in this example for 1,000, and if 1,000 responses are less than $2, you are green, and if it's more than $2, then you would be red. And this is a way to make an efficiency KPI. Are you running efficiently? And if you are more than $2, well, can you do something about that? Why is that? And let's say, well, because customers are actually super anxious about their packages, and they keep clicking, oh, refresh or search, and every response generates a cost. So then it can come back to the team, and the team can say, okay, let me then change my architecture here, create some sort of caching system that for every period of 5 hours, it's going to cost me one search, right? So once it's cached for 5 hours, it's going to stay there. Doesn't matter how many times the person clicks search, it's going to be the same cost. And then your efficiency would definitely go lower. So this is a way, just an example of creating a KPI for a team, for an important application that brings value to customer, and that the customer also gets, that they have autonomy to change something to make it better, to improve the efficiency, and not something that is completely outside of their scope of autonomy or responsibility. Yes?
Yeah. Thank you. Maybe we can go a little bit more towards a cloud infrastructure. So I'm wondering, are there any best practices on KPIs which you typically see, Sydney, in the FinOps area?
Yeah, so we're definitely starting to see more, and I exactly what Michel is saying, right? We need to be conscious. We need to be conscious of the business context that we want to measure in. We need to be conscious of the units that we're trying to measure, right? So we need to make sure that that's something we can do, and we also need to make sure that it's actually something that we can. Not only is it within the business context, it's actually something we can measure, right? The measurability is also really key. So I've been helping customers. Now we're starting to see an increase in this, as I think as a result of the functionality that we've come out with recently called Flex Reports, where we are seeing customers who are starting to try to measure and create new KPIs. And so some of the generic ones that I'm seeing that are starting to pick up would be efficiency KPIs from per unit of cost, right? So a common one that we're seeing is looking at the cost, the dollar per normalized unit of infrastructure. So on AWS, for EC2 instances, you've got this idea of normalization factor units, NFUs. So NFUs are essentially saying within a single family, a small is equal to, or two smalls is equal to, a medium, right? Each step you go up, you're doubling the size of the infrastructure, but it's still, at the end of the day, it's only one machine. But the cost is scaling with that as well. And so the way we understand that, like Michel was saying, the way we understand 10 small machines is equal to one bigger machine, right, is through this idea of normalization factor units. So we're enabling our customers through this reporting functionality that we've built out to create these types of reports where we can say it is this amount of money per NFU for, and then we can add some business context to that as well. And so we can say this is for in a particular region, or for a particular tag, or for a particular business unit, right? Or account, whatever it is. We can start to measure that by, take this measure and give it some business context, whether that be accounts, business units, tagging, again, what have you. And so we can then compare that and track that over time. And that's how we're starting to increase the accountability, and it all feeds back.
Yeah, so we do see a lot of technical KPIs currently from the cloud, or metrics, I should say. So a lot of metrics are produced by the cloud platform themselves, can be enriched by KPIs from the application teams. So when they're basically developing an application, they can send custom metrics to any metric service within cloud, and then if you combine that with cost or the bill, and that will be really nice. But what are the latest developments in the business side of those things?
Yeah, so what we have been seeing is that a lot of companies are trying to really integrate the actual business output from that is being created by their cloud, and trying to integrate that with the actual KPI. So the example Sydney was giving about the normalized NFUs is something that people can relate, because some people will relate more to dollar per core. So if a medium instance would have 2 cores, a large instance would have 4 cores, and an extra large 8 cores, so on. So you can have dollar per core. And imagine that you have all this supporting a specific application that, it's a fleet of service supporting the e-commerce. So you can say, okay, how much my e-commerce is bringing in revenue, and the e-commerce is supported by all that, and I have, I don't know how many purchases in a given month. So, and how much infrastructure do I need for that? Is my dollar? So, and they try to bring a business metric and compose a KPI together with the cloud KPI, right? Being that an efficiency KPI or a cost KPI. So, and this is what we have is what I would call what the most innovative part out there, people trying to really play around and integrate this in a continuous way, right? And find okay, this is what I need to track to make sure that I'm on track in terms of cloud costs and cloud value, especially.
Yeah, so this is a very interesting topic. And you guys worked together before. Are there any resources for our viewers if they want to know more about this topic?
Yeah. Absolutely. So if we have questions, you of course are free to email me and Sydney as well. And here on these QR codes that are on the screen right now, on the side of my picture, you would have a blog post I wrote about best practices to build KPIs, FinOps KPIs. And on the on Sydney's side, there is a Cloud Health by VMware study that corroborates a lot of what we have been discussing here about the visibility part and the maturity state of cloud users that are within the customer base of Cloud Health by VMware, which is huge. So it's quite interesting. But if you have other questions or anything else, please feel free to reach out to us. And it was absolutely a pleasure sharing all this information with everyone. I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Sydney, any closing thoughts from your end?
Honestly, Michel hit it out of the park. I think he hit all my points. Sadly, so it leaves me with just a few little things to fill in here or there. But really, it was a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invite, and look forward to hearing from everyone.
Okay, thank you. With this, I want to thank everybody for looking, watching, listening, whatever, and I want to close this session. Thank you, Sydney. Enjoy the rest of your day because you're a little bit off compared to our time here. And Michel, thanks as well.
Thank you, Sydney, for being a guest.
And that's it.